The last conversation Ryan Mercer ever had with his best friend lasted 11 minutes and 40 seconds. He knew the exact length because he had checked his call log the morning after, standing in his kitchen in Portland, Oregon, still in yesterday's clothes, trying to understand how something that short could carry so much weight. Marcus had called at 9:47 on a Thursday night. He had sounded tired in that particular way. He always sounded tired, not exhausted, just stretched thin, the way a man sounds when he is carrying more than he lets on. They talked about nothing important. The Portland Trail Blazers, a job Marcus was thinking about applying for, whether Ryan was ever going to fix. The leak in his apartment, ceiling that he had been complaining about for 2 years. Marcus had laughed at that, a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere genuine, and said, "You're a disaster, man." And Ryan had said, "Yeah, but I'm your disaster." And Marcus had said, "Always." And then they hung up. Marcus was dead by morning. A drunk driver 2 miles from his house on a road he had driven 1,000 times. He was 36 years old. Ryan drove the 4 hours to Sacramento the same day he got the call. He didn't pack properly. He brought 2 shirts and no toothbrush and stayed for 3 weeks, sleeping on the couch of the house Marcus had shared with his son Noah, because Noah's mother had been out of the picture since Noah was 3 and there was no one else. Marcus had no siblings. His parents were elderly and in poor health in a retirement community in Arizona. There were friends, good ones, but no one who lived close. No one who could step in the way the situation required someone to step in. Noah was 8 years old. He had his father's wide, dark eyes and his father's habit of going very quiet. When he was thinking hard about something, he had a collection of model airplanes that Marcus had helped him build, hanging from the ceiling of his bedroom on thin wire so they looked like they were really flying. He had not cried yet at the funeral. He stood next to Ryan the whole time with his small hand wrapped around 2 of Ryan's fingers. Not his whole hand, just 2 fingers. Like he had calculated exactly how much of himself he could afford to give away right now. Ryan noticed that. He noticed everything about Noah in those first weeks. The way you notice everything when you are trying to figure out if someone is going to be okay. He was not sure Noah was going to be okay. The question of what happened next was not simple. Child Protective Services got involved, as they are required to. Ryan had no legal relationship to Noah. He was his father's best friend. Nothing more on paper. Marcus had not updated his will in years, had not named a guardian, had not thought, the way none of us think at 36, that any of this was urgent. The system moved the way it always moves. Slowly, carefully, with the best intentions and the grinding gears of bureaucracy. Ryan hired a lawyer. He told her he wanted emergency temporary guardianship. She told him it was possible but not guaranteed. He told her he didn't care about guarantees. He cared about Noah. Not waking up in a house full of strangers. While everyone sorted out the paperwork, he got the temporary guardianship. He rented out his apartment in Portland. He moved into Marcus's house in Sacramento and took over Noah's school pickup and grocery runs and bedtime routines, learning everything from scratch. Which cereal Noah would eat and which he wouldn't touch. Which nightlight setting helped him sleep. Why Tuesdays were hard at school and what helped. Who Jalen was and why the friendship had gotten complicated and what Ryan was supposed to say about it. He was 37 years old, had never been married, had never wanted children in the way. Some people want children, not from aversion, but just from a life that had moved in other directions. He was a freelance architect, worked from home, was quiet and structured and deeply used to the rhythms of a solitary existence. None of that had prepared him for this. None of it mattered. He had made a silent promise standing over Marcus's casket, the kind of promise that requires no words because it is not a decision but a fact. And he was going to keep it. About 6 weeks in, Noah started calling him Dad. It happened gradually and then all at once. First it was by accident, a slip at school pickup where Noah turned to a classmate and said, "My dad is here," before catching himself and going very quiet. Ryan pretended not to hear it. A few days later it happened again. At the dinner table, "Dad, can I have more pasta?" and then he stopped correcting it entirely, and Ryan understood why. Because Noah was 8 years old and had just lost the only parent he had ever had and needed something to hold on to that felt real. And if this word, this four-letter word that Ryan had never been called before in his life, was the thing that helped Noah feel like the ground was still under his feet, then Ryan was going to be that word. He told himself it was temporary, practical, a kindness. He told himself a lot of things. The first year was not pretty, and it was not a movie. It was a man who had never raised a child, making every possible mistake in good faith and learning on the fly. He put Noah's lunch in the wrong bag and sent him to school with an empty backpack twice. He forgot about picture day. He signed the wrong field trip permission slip, and then had to call the school in a panic. He burned dinner so many times that Noah, with the devastating candor of a 9-year-old, once said, maybe we should just always do sandwiches. But he also showed up. Every single time, in every way that counted, he showed up. He was at every parent-teacher conference. He sat in the pediatrician's waiting room, reading a year-old magazine and trying not to look as lost as he felt. He drove 2 hours round trip to a grief counselor 3 times a week for the first 4 months, because the school counselor said it would help, and Ryan did not question it. He sat outside the counselor's door on a plastic chair with his laptop, working on architectural plans, waiting. Noah started doing better. Not in a straight line. It was never a straight line, but the trajectory was real. He started laughing again, first at small things and then at bigger ones. He got interested in basketball, then obsessed with it. He made peace with Jalen and found 2 new friends. He went back to working on his model airplanes. And one Saturday, he asked Ryan if he wanted to help. And Ryan, who had never once built a model airplane in his life, sat down at the kitchen table and followed Noah's instructions for 3 hours and did not complain once. They built a B-17 bomber. It was not perfect. It hung next to the others on the ceiling wire in Noah's room, slightly crooked, one wing a fraction lower than the other. And Noah looked at it every night before he went to sleep. Ryan saw him looking at it one evening from the doorway. "It's a little lopsided," Ryan said. Noah considered it. "I like it," he said. "It looks like it's working harder than the others." Ryan stood in the doorway and didn't say anything for a moment. Then he said, "Good night, bud." "Good night, Dad." He went down the hallway and stood in the kitchen in the dark for a while. He was not crying. He was something else, something that didn't have a clean name. The permanent guardianship was finalized 14 months after Marcus died. It was a quieter process than Ryan expected. A court date, a brief hearing, a judge who asked Noah directly if he was happy and comfortable and safe. And Noah said yes to all 3 without hesitation and without looking at Ryan to see if that was the right answer, which was how Ryan knew it was the truth. Walking out of the courthouse, Noah reached up and took his hand, not 2 fingers this time, the whole hand, and said, "Does this mean you can't give me back?" Ryan stopped walking. He looked down at this boy, this 9-year-old, with his father's dark eyes and his slightly too big sneakers and a smear of mustard on his sleeve, from the hot dog they'd had at the cart outside before the hearing. And he said very clearly, "Nobody can give you back. You're mine. That's it." Noah nodded like this was the satisfactory conclusion to a very important negotiation. Then he said, "Can we get ice cream?" They got ice cream. If this story is landing somewhere real inside you, stay with it. The next part is why we made this video. Watch until the very last word. And if this channel has ever given you a story worth feeling, now is the moment to subscribe and leave us a like. This one isn't over yet. Ryan did not bring up adoption. He thought about it. He turned it over in his mind. The way you turn over a question you're not sure you have the right to ask. Noah was doing well. The guardianship was stable. The word dad had been living between them for over a year. Completely natural now, worn smooth from use. Ryan didn't want to push. He didn't want Noah to feel pressured, or like he was being asked to replace something instead of add to it. Marcus was Noah's father. That was a fact that Ryan held sacred. Whatever he was to this boy, he was not a replacement. He was something new, something without a clean name, like the feeling in the kitchen that night in the dark. So he waited. He kept showing up. He made the sandwiches and drove to the games, and sat in the plastic chairs and built the lopsided airplanes. He stayed. Noah was 11 when it happened. It was a Sunday evening in November, cold outside, the house warm. They were watching a game, the Trail Blazers, Marcus's team, which Ryan had made sure stayed, Noah's team, and during halftime. Noah went quiet in that way he had, that going still to think hard way he had inherited from his father. Ryan noticed but said nothing. He had learned with Noah that the silence needed space. After a minute, Noah said, without looking away from the TV, "Ryan." He used his name. He almost never used his name. "Yeah. I want to have your last name." Ryan kept his eyes forward. His chest was doing something complicated that he was trying to keep off his face. "Is that right?" he said very carefully. "I want it to be official," Noah said. "Like real, not just—" He paused, working something out. "I still want to be my dad's son. I don't want to unbe that, but I want to be your son too. Like both. Is that allowed?" Ryan turned and looked at him then. This boy who had held 2 of his fingers at a funeral because he had calculated how much of himself he could afford. This boy who built airplanes and said they looked like they were working harder. This boy who had taken the whole hand eventually. This boy who had, without Ryan ever quite deciding it, become the organizing fact of his entire life. "That's allowed," Ryan said. "That's absolutely allowed." Noah nodded, still looking at the TV, but his jaw unclenched and his shoulders dropped a fraction of an inch. The small architecture of relief. "Okay," he said. "Cool." "Cool," Ryan agreed. The game came back on. Neither of them moved. Outside the window, the November dark pressed up against the glass and inside the house. The heat came through the vents and the Blazers went down by 6 in the third quarter, and neither of them really cared. The adoption was finalized on a Friday in February. Noah Marcus Mercer, age 11, formerly Noah Jackson, stood in the same kind of wood-paneled courtroom Ryan had sat outside of on a plastic chair 14 months earlier, and the judge asked him if this was what he wanted. Noah looked at Ryan first, not for permission, not for confirmation, just the way you look at someone who has become your true north, just to locate yourself. Then he looked at the judge and said, "He let me call him Dad when I had nobody. He didn't have to do that. He just did it because I needed it." He paused. "I think that's what a dad is." The judge looked at Ryan. Ryan was not holding it together. He was not even trying to. The judge signed the papers. On the drive home, Noah asked if they could stop for burgers, and Ryan said yes. They sat in a booth by the window with the February sleet coming down outside, and Noah ate half his fries and stole the other half of Ryan's, which was a habit Ryan had given up trying to stop. Approximately 8 months into this arrangement, at some point Noah looked up from his food and said, "Hey, you okay?" Ryan thought about the question. He thought about an 11-minute phone call and a couch he had slept on, and a courthouse and a plastic chair and a lopsided airplane and a small hand, holding 2 fingers, and then the whole hand, and then a name asked for on a Sunday evening in November, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Yeah," he said, "I'm really good." Noah looked at him for a second with those wide, dark eyes, Marcus's eyes, exactly Marcus's eyes, and then went back to his burger like the matter was settled. Outside, the sleet came down over Sacramento. Inside the diner, it was warm and bright and loud with other people's ordinary lives. And Ryan Mercer, 39 years old, a man who had never planned to be a father and had become one anyway, not by biology, not by law first, but by showing up. Again and again and again, sat across from his son and felt, for the first time in a long time, that the world was exactly the right size. Marcus had called him a disaster. He had called him his disaster. Ryan looked at Noah, this boy who was both his best friend's son and entirely his own, and thought, yeah, but look what this disaster built. He wouldn't have changed a single thing. That's the whole story. If it hit you somewhere real, if you felt it, you're exactly who this channel is for. Subscribe, leave a like, and come back. We'll be here with another one. We always are.